My dear students, in my previous video, I talked about article writing, that is one of the most important component when it comes to writing skills. The second part that today I am going to cover in this video is reading skills, that is one of the most important component when it comes to language acquisition or learning any language, and English in particular. Before I start, let me quote some of the famous writers as my habit of introducing any topic. So before I start, let me quote, reading maketh a full man, once said by a famous essayist. Next, if we encounter a man of rare intellect, we should ask him what books he reads, said by Ralph Waldo Emerson. One more, employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writing, so that you shall come easily by what others have labored hard for, said Socrates. At the first statement that I said, first quote by Francis Bacon, reading maketh a full man. One more for your pleasure. It is a great thing to start life with a small number of reading really good books, which are your very own, said by Arthur Conan Doyle. I just assemble for your pleasure these three quotes, four quotes, but there are a lot of quotes that are available on internet and different books that speak volumes about the importance of reading skills. Now, let me talk first about the purpose of this topic that I'm going to cover in this class. My dear, some of the purpose I wrote here, the first is develop a broad background. Develop a broad background. If you read a text, anything, it might be article, report, textbook, books other than books from different genres of literature, might be autobiography, biography, science fiction, imaginary piece, right, Bildungsroman. So this will develop a broad background. Second is create motivation and interest. It will create your motivation. It will create motivation and it will generate your curiosity and interest and develop the power of language. Build a good vocabulary. If you want to develop if you want to have a good vocabulary, reading is very important. It will help you. In many of the videos, Shashi Tharoor, one of the most famous speaker and the parliamentarian, he spoke about the importance of reading. The next is that I wrote here, use a systematic reading techniques like SQRRR. SQRRR, that stands for survey, question, read, recite and review. SQRRR can be termed as SQR3 as well. The next I'm going to talk about objectives of reading. What are the objectives of reading? It is very much connected with purpose. So objectives, if you talk about reading to become a better reader, if you want to develop, if you want to become a better reader, reading is a way you should opt for, you should go for. Next is read to develop critical thinking skills. If you want to develop your critical thinking skills, critical thinking ability, you need to read. You need to be an avid reader. Read for enjoyment, of course. If you love books, books are the best companions of our life. And if you love books, if you have books with you, you will never feel isolated in this world. Now, I talked about purpose of reading, then objectives. Now, let me come to the main point, main core areas, core principles on which we are going to talk is reading techniques. Now, what are the different reading techniques? Three I'm going to discuss here. First is skimming, second scanning, and the third is summarizing. First, I'm going to talk about skimming. Okay, I have collected my personal notes here. Now, if you talk about skimming, it is the action of reading something quickly so as to note only the important points. Many times we go to a bookshop and we try to grab a book, right, my dear? So what we try to do, we try to skim the pages, and many times when we see the question paper in the examination hall, especially the passage, comprehension section, we skim the passage. We just try to find out not only the important points. We read the text only to note some important points. That is skimming. Understood now? The next is scanning. When we talk about scanning, it is reading rapidly in order to find specific facts. See, if you are reading a text to find out the important information from the text, you are skimming the passage, skimming the comprehension section. The next, if you are scanning any text, what exactly you are doing? You are reading it rapidly in order to find out some specific facts from the text. Okay, my dear, scanning is over. The next is summarizing. If we talk about summarizing, it, it teaches how to discern the most important ideas in a text. The most important ideas, if you want to discern from any passage, the most important areas, the most important points, then this you need to go with summarizing. How to ignore irrelevant information. If you want to learn how to ignore irrelevant information, the information that is not at all important, you need to go with summarizing. How to integrate the central ideas in a meaningful way. How to integrate the central ideas in a meaningful way, you need to go for this, summarizing. Understood now? Skimming, scanning, and summarizing. These three are most important reading techniques. Moving ahead, let me discuss the fourth point, reading styles. Very important point. Now, if you are talking about reading styles, we have two reading styles generally. First is intensive reading, the next is extensive reading. Now, let me discuss first intensive reading. If you talk about intensive reading, my dear students, it is to read intensively. To read intensively is to completely deconstruct a text. Completely deconstruct a text with the goal of absorbing as much meaning from it as possible. Absorbing as much meaning as possible from the text. If you are doing intensive reading, you are trying to extract the entire information as much as possible from any passage, from any comprehension section, from any book, from any text. Okay, so this is one of the most important reading styles. Intensive reading. You are reading intensively, extracting, absorbing, squeezing the entire information given in the text. You are doing intensive reading. The next part is extensive reading. And under extensive reading, skimming and scanning comes. I have already talked about skimming, when you are reading out the passage to find out some important informations from the passage. You are doing skimming, and when you are reading the passage in order to find out some specific facts, you are scanning. So when you are skimming and scanning a text, you are going with extensive reading. When you are trying to squeeze and extract the entire information as much as possible from any text, you are doing intensive reading. Now, moving ahead, talking about the effective reading methods. When we talk about effective reading methods, my dear students, these all are very important areas, very important, and it will help you throughout your life. The objectives that I said, the purpose that I said about reading techniques and the reading styles, and the last point that I'm going to discuss right now is effective reading methods. The first is top-down approach. The second is bottom-up approach. Now, what is this top-down approach? If you talk about the top-down approach, I have mentioned here in my note, the top-down approach goes from general to the specific. I have mentioned here general to the specific. From general to the specific. You are using your past experiences when you are doing this method, a top-down approach, right? Top-down processing of a language happens when someone uses background information to predict the meaning of language. You are using your background information in order to decipher the meaning of a language. It is helpful for the teachers because it helps in motivating students to learn through direct interaction and immersion, direct interaction. So this method, top-down approach, is the most important method which students should use. That's why I mark here star. This is very important for a student. Direct interaction with the language, But this bottom-up approach is basically technical thing, and I have mentioned here, it is more instructor-driven and focuses on the minutiae of a subject as a way of decoding and simplifying each component through repetition and memorization. It is a bit technical. We discuss in linguistic areas here in bottom-up approach, right? And in top-down approach, we go for general. We go from general to the specific. So, my dear students, whenever you get time, please read intensively. Please understand why are you reading any text, right? Spend your time with the books. And meanwhile, I will be also providing you some of the important pieces, important books as well as important articles that you will have to read throughout the text. I hope the meaning is clear. Thank you for listening. Thank you.